What's up, biznatches? This video is all about event bounce. I think I'll talk normally from here on out. Now, if you are an event photographer, wedding photojournalist of some sort, then bounce flash is going to be one of your primary tools when you're working in journalistic environments like the one you see here, which happens to be at an event. And we do a lot of events. Sorry, it happens to be at a wedding, which is a type of event. But let's talk through this. Now, I want to talk through the tips first because we're going to basically cover the different types of gear that we would use for this. And you guys can just see the gear list of, the different options and items that you'd have, and kind of our preferences will come through naturally as we go through the tips. So let's start with the first tip. And the first tip is that your best bounce is going to actually come not from the ceiling, not from behind you, not from anywhere other than the walls, okay? The walls to the left and to the right of you. So basically all we do is we take this flash and we point it to the side, okay? Now if you want just a little more angle, like the light coming down a little bit, then you point it to the side and slightly up. But this is your first and best option for bounce. And then simply all you're gonna do is point at your subject and take a shot and you get this beautiful little bounce light. Fantastic, and it's gonna give you directional light, it's gonna look great, it'll look awesome. But oftentimes you don't have a left or a right side wall to bounce off of. Or what if the left and the right walls, they're not neutral colored? What if they're dark brown? What if they're red? What if they're yellow? What if they're some color that you cannot use to bounce? You're kind of out of luck in that situation. Sort of. Well, that's when basically we're gonna turn to the ceiling. So ceiling bounce is tip number 2. Tip number 2 is ceiling bounce, but it does require a fill. And we talked about this earlier, and we showed you earlier when we took that shot of Jeremiah. When we used that overhead fill and we had no fill on his eyes were basically dark, okay? They end up becoming what we call raccoon eyes. They don't look good. Unless you're looking for that scary, dramatic look, then fine. But typically at a wedding, nobody wants to look scary, dramatic. It's just not a thing. So what kind of fill are we talking about? Well, my favorite is just to grab a Fong Dong, okay? You grab the Fong Dong and you put it on the flash and you shake it all about. I'm just kidding. Just put it on your flash. You don't need to shake it all about. Not necessary. Okay, so what this is going to do is once this is on the flash head, I can now bounce off a ceiling. And what's going to happen is light's going to come out of this. It's going to refract around the circle and it's going to have light pushed around in all directions, okay? So it's going to push some light forward, some to the right, some back, and then most of the light is still going to go to the ceiling. So I can still get a ceiling bounce, but this little dome is going to give me fill forwards and all around, which will give me much better eyes at a, say, situation like this. So that's great. This is fantastic. I can bounce up and now use that. What if the ceiling is super vaulted? Or what if by chance you're working outdoors? Well, domes like the Fong Dong, and they make cheaper domes. We talked about all the different brands of domes you can get. I prefer this guy because it's portable, compact, it has good light transmission, and well, it's nice. It's just nice. It has a nice rubber feel to it. Feels fantastic. Okay, but it does come with a dome. Every single dome, dome comes with a cap, I should say. It's a little cap that you put on the very top that seals it up basically, and instead of letting most light travel up through, it pushes the light out forward. The only problem with that is that there's not much difference between that versus direct flash. So if you have a vaulted ceiling, or what if you're in rooms that are kind of like pitch black? And that's the environment that I wanted to show you here. This is one of those worst case type scenarios. What do you do in a worst case type scenario? Worst case type scenario is rooms like this, where the left wall, the right wall, the ceiling, and everything around you is all black. I don't know why. Everything was black. I think it was because it's like an amphitheater or something like that. It's a theater. It's not designed for weddings. So everything is black all around you. There's nothing to bounce off of. Or what if you're outdoors at nighttime and there's nothing to bounce off of? Well, you're kind of stuck with a couple options. You could direct flash, and direct flash does work. And if you keep those rules that we talked about earlier, if you want it to look natural, you expose the background brightly. Now, if it's dark, keep the shutter speed low, 1/50th of a second. Go with a low aperture, f2, f2.8, ISO 1600, ISO 3200, and flash lightly. You'll still get decent quality images. You can do the exact same thing with a dome on, and you cap it so that the light gets pushed forward, but it's going to look similar to direct flash. So how do we get quality lighting in those types of situations, in these worst case situations? Oh, by the way, just to demonstrate the kind of light quality I was getting, I took a shot with the dome. Okay, now this couple, don't do this, by the way, on just all of your wedding shoots. My clients, and our clients at Lynn and Jersa Photography, they pay a lot of money to have us shoot their weddings. Anytime we use anything for educational purposes, if we're doing things like that, we have them sign and be aware of it so that, we're not doing things like just to mess around. So what I did right here is while they're getting ready for this shot, I took a quick shot with just my dome and I bounced off of the ceiling into I think this is to the left. What you can see is a tiny bit of light, and I bounced hard. This is like 1/1 flash power. We get a tiny bit of light coming back here, and then everybody else, you just see like the room lights. You don't see anything. There's nothing on that side. It looks terrible. Part of the group is like slightly lit. I would venture to guess that they're only lit because a little bit of the fill flash on this pushed forward, and that was it. Okay, the rest is like gone. It's in the black space. This shot looks terrible. So what do we do in these situations? BYOB. Doesn't that sound for bring your own barbecue? I'm making it bring your own bounce. Bring your own bounce to these kind of situations. So what do you do? Okay, so when working in outside or dark venues or venues with colored walls, bring your own bounce. This is a bounce. Right? This is the f-stopper flash disc. While I love this little modifier, I don't necessarily like to walk around receptions and ceremonies like this. It's just a little bit too big. It's a little bit too in your face for me, okay? But what I don't mind doing is I don't mind holding this and just kind of keeping it near me in my pocket or whatever and bouncing off of it. So what I'll do is I'll just angle my flash like this. And when I take a shot, if the group is standing right there, or let's say that you guys are the group, all I'm gonna do is point at the group. I'm gonna bring my flash right here and just bounce right off this guy. So now I get this beautiful diffused bounce light off of a little reflector that I'm holding in my hand. You can do the exact same thing. This is what I talked about earlier with this little guy. What is this guy, the Interfit? You can hold it just off the side. Do the exact same thing. Get a nice little bounce off this guy. Granted, the f-stopper flash disc is going to push back a little bit more light because it's a white over silver, okay? This is just a white which is transparent, which is going to let a lot of that light through. But either way, when you're working in dark environments, usually your exposure is set with a high ISO, so this will still work totally fine. But this is what I mean for this bounce. Now, using this, I'm going around and getting shots like this. So whenever we're doing the small groups, this is like a journalistic shot. They're just in the moment doing their thing. So what is the setting for this bottom middle shot? Well, I'm on the 2470. I'm at 35 millimeters at 1/160th of a second, f2.8 ISO 1600. And this is the f-stopper flash disc bounce at TTL, which again, none of you use TTL. Don't do it. I'm at 1/16th to 1/32nd power, okay? And it pushes back enough light to light them up and it looks fantastic. It looks like they posed for this shot, right? And it looks like we had studio lighting. But it's not. It's just on camera bounced off of an f-stopper flash disc. But what if I'm working with larger groups? This group, this group. Well, in those kind of cases, I like to have my assistant carry around just a white over silver. And when I'm doing big group shots, and figure out if it's appropriate for that scene you're in. If I'm doing a high-end celebrity wedding, I'd probably just stick with these small items. But if this is a wedding where people don't mind, if it's all about the photos, they love this, I'll have my assistant just bring around these foldable Westcott reflectors, and when I'm ready to take a shot, she or he just simply holds up the reflectors and I bounce off of it and get beautiful lighting on these groups. And this is just simple bounce flash. So very easy, very simple techniques that yield beautiful, beautiful lighting for larger groups, and they work in any situation. So remember, when you're in a bind, there's no walls to bounce off of, there's no ceiling, you're outdoors, it's dark, it's bad colored walls, whatever it is, BYOB, bring your own bounce. If you want to go incognito, just use smaller ones that you can handhold yourself. You want to get the best light possible, use a full reflector, and usually I'll have my assistant tuck them away, so they'll just fold them up, tuck them away when we're not shooting. We only bring them out for a shot. And in between shots, I'm not having her hold out the whole time. If it's a small in-between, like journalistic moment, I'm using my small guys and I'm doing it myself. When it's the large group shot and everybody's ready and posed and ready for the shots, I have her hold that. By the way, what are the camera settings for these? Let me just go over these real quick. This is the top, middle, and top right. So we're at the 2470 again. This is around 30 millimeters in focal length, 1/60th of a second at f4, 1600. We're bouncing at around 1/4 to 1/16th power, depending again on the group sizing. and the distance. So if the group size is pretty large, I have my assistant stand a little bit further back and I'm around 1/4 power. If the group is smaller, my assistant's a little bit closer to me and I'm at 1/8 to 1/16 power. One thing I wanted to mention as well, this bottom left shot, why did I put an X mark on that guy? Be careful of reflective surfaces in your backgrounds, okay? But when you have an actual glass or mirror surface, if you're holding up a reflector, you can see it right there. When you bounce off of it, it's gonna brighten up and it's gonna show in the window. So as soon as that happens, basically we just turn the group and you just fire at an angle where you're not gonna get the reflection of yourself firing off the reflector in the shot itself, okay? So just remember to watch out for those reflective surfaces. So now we've kind of covered it all. And by the way, if you're at an event and let's say you've forgotten your reflectors, I don't know why. I don't know how, I don't know why. Let's just say you forgot your reflectors. You have no handheld reflectors, you have no large 5-in-1 reflectors. Well, knowing what we know about light modification now, what could you possibly use? If some of you said, I gotta stop doing that lame pause, that children's video pause. But if you're thinking a white shirt or a white napkin or something that you could possibly bounce off, you're absolutely right. And in fact, we now have a standard where in the studio, anytime we go to a shoot, we wear white shirts and black ties. Why? Because oftentimes if I'm in a pinch and I need to get a shot, I'm gonna grab my third shooter or my lighting assistant, I'm gonna sit him right next to me on the dance floor and I'll pop a shot right off of his shirt, just like this. I'll fire right into his shirt, firing against whatever subject I have and I get a beautiful bounce off of his shirt. So it creates a very simple bounce anytime you need it. So we just wear white because it does actually come in handy at times where you might not have, I mean, we always have our gear with us, but at times it's just, I got to get a moment. It's happening right now. And I can't have anybody go run and grab something, or I don't want it to look, kind of intrusive. I just want it to fire a shot. I'll grab my third shooter / assistant and have him stand next to me and just bounce off of his shirt. You can use any of these in any situation, and that's why there's rarely ever a situation where you need to use direct flash, unless for some reason none of these techniques have worked and none of them are possible in your current situation, then possibly direct flash. But remember the techniques that we did teach you on direct flash as well. All right, we're done with this video. Let's head on to the next one now.